New year, new Locked On Red Sox. We try to start off the year as positive as possible and look at what excites us about the Red Sox 2023 season.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I haven't said this in a while, but that song makes me dance. I don't know, it goes on. Like we're just waiting here, waiting to start the podcast, and I'm just dancing a little bit. We're gonna do our best to make this episode a little bit groovy, a little bit exciting, a little bit positive.
Groovy.
Let's start this new year on the high note, as high as possible. Over the last few months, it's been a little bit dim, but what's up? Welcome back into Locked On Red Sox. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, here as always with my co-host NESN's Lauren Willand. But we're going to talk about what excites us about the 2023 season. I said to you before I hit record, Lauren, this is probably the most positive that you're going to hear me. Over the last few months, I reflected on it a little bit, and with everything that has happened with this team, whether it's positive or negative over the last few months, we need to bring back something that was so big when I was 4 or 5 years old and barely knew what the Red Sox were. And it's the slogan, keep the faith. And I think, especially with all the what ifs, with all the unknowns surrounding this Boston Red Sox team, we saw it happen in 2013, 2021, going into those years with barely any optimism, a lot of question marks, and they ultimately were able to come out on top in 2013, almost in 2021, but definitely way further and way more successful than anybody expected. But we're going to do our best to try and excite you about this 2023 Red Sox team.
Yeah, I mean, keyword is try, right? Yeah, that's
All we can do.
listen. I've given you a lot of praise for how positive you are, not just with the Red Sox team, but with life in general. And it's good to have someone because I'm excited for baseball season. You know, pitchers and catchers do report next month, so yes, naturally, I'm excited for baseball to start again. It's just hard to get excited about this team, and right now it's slow. I mean, nothing's going to happen right now for a while. We still want to know what's going on with Carlos Correa. That's where my mind is at right
Very
now.
true. Very true.
I need to know what's going on there, but there's always going to be something positive to look forward to, right? It's just hard because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's still a lot of questions to be answered, and there's still a lot of what is going on kind of questions surrounding this team.
And I think that's one thing that, we talked a little bit about in the final episode of 2022, but trying to go into this next year and with a new perspective, you know what I mean? There's always a positive way that you can look at different things. And I think especially with this team, with the doom and gloom of Xander Bogaerts departing, that definitely put a damper on, the Yoshida signing, the Kenley Jansen signing, the Chris Martin signing, and all the other possibilities that could potentially go in the Red Sox right way this next season. And, the first thing that I wanted to talk about to start off is I am very excited to see the remaining moves that this team makes. One thing that not a lot of people have really talked about, where will Bobby Delbeck be? Where will Jaron Duran be? Where
Hopefully
will
not
Alex
on this
Verdugo,
team.
Tanner Houck? You know what I mean? So many different possibilities. Will they make a trade? Will they acquire an ace? Who will be up the middle? There's just so many question marks, and you can either look at them as daunting or you can look at them as exciting, because either way, us watching from the outside, we have absolutely zero control, zero knowledge of what is exactly happening. Even the beat reporters who, have sources up the wazoo, nobody exactly knows what this team is going to look like on opening day of 2023. So that's one thing that I'm excited about, and I'm curious to see sort of how everything unfolds.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see if Chaim Bloom really does utilize this trade market. It really seems like the only option for him and the Red Sox at this point of the offseason, and with how many holes they have to fill, with how many or lack of free agents left on the market that would be able to help this team. So I'm very interested to see and excited to see if this trade market does take shape because, you mentioned Dahlbeck and Duran. Like, will they get traded? You do have other trade chips, and, people do throw around, that you won't be able to get this person from this team without Brian Bayo. And you could insert any team and any player that could be of the Red Sox interest in those little blank spaces, and they're going to say Brian Bayo. I don't want to trade him away. I think I don't like saying anyone's untouchable, but I don't want to trade him away when we still don't really know exactly what he is. But there's a ton of possibilities here for the Red Sox when it comes to the trade market. It's just a matter of, will Chaim Bloom actually pull the trigger and make a good move and a good solid move for this team? I'm very excited to see if he actually does that. Whether I have optimism, that's a completely different story. But there's a lot of question marks going into this season. Who's playing short? Is it going to be Story? And then where's Kike going to play? How are you going to utilize Christian Arroyo, because he's not an everyday player? What if Yoshida really struggles in the outfield? Then what are you going to do? Because it sounds like right now the Red Sox need a lot of plan Bs for a potentially failed plan A. Does this team have the potential to be good? Yeah, of course they do. I mean, you look at the players. Yes, they 100% have the potential to be good. Will they be good is another discussion, because you don't know what kind of chemistry this team has now. You have good clubhouse guys. I think Justin Turner's a good clubhouse guy. Kenley Jansen, I'm very excited to see if he gets a proper opportunity to close games and they're able to utilize him. Very excited to see him, and I'm very excited to see Brian Bayo's growth. He was so good. You saw him in Worcester too. Like, he was so good in Worcester, so efficient, and hopefully that can translate to the MLB level, especially with the full off season working with Pedro. Which, if you're working with Pedro, he sees something in you, and he's been compared to Pedro with, I think it's his slider. I think they've compared those two pitches together, but there's a lot to be excited about. Maybe not even for this season, but the seasons beyond, because you do have the exciting prospects. But for 2023, really excited to see what Jansen can do if they can, like I said, give him the proper opportunity to be the closer this team has needed since 2018, after the 2018 season. And I'm really intrigued to see Rafael Devers, because especially if he does not get signed before the season starts, which I'm not banking on, but what kind of season will he put together? Because he's thinking free agency. He's thinking big contract, big money. And can he perform even better than he has? Will he be 100% healthy? That's another thing too. He has dealt with injuries in his short career, but in a contract year, when this guy is going to get a lot of money thrown at him, and he saw what Bogarts got. He's seeing what other people that play third base are getting, and he's probably looking at DHs too and seeing what they're getting. So I'm excited to see kind of what he brings to this team. And like I said, playing in a contract year, it can make or break somebody's off season.
Right. And that's what you mentioned in the middle of there. I think really fits in with what these remaining moves will look like, of not only like what moves the Red Sox will make, but how everything will mold together. And one thing that I did want to preface is coming on here, being all positive and flipping the script, sort of what we've done over the last month. I don't want it to come off as blind optimism. I'm going to have realistic optimism. If the Red Sox sign somebody, and in his past he looks like he's not going to contribute to this team, and in that it's not going to be able to help this team, I'm going to be realistic. I'm going to be honest. But like, at the same time, if there's a positive question mark that none of us really know, because we can't predict the future, we're going to look at it and dissect it and figure out what could potentially go right, but also what could go wrong as well. Because that's one thing that we saw from a lot of these different moves during this offseason, is these roadblocks. So will Bobby Dalbec or Jarren Duran be a roadblock for some of these other guys like Rafaela, who should be the center fielder in Worcester? Duran shouldn't be the center fielder in Worcester. They need to give Rafaela reps. And Dalbec as well.
He's definitely not a roadblock. He's not a threat. He's not a roadblock. Like, I know I have my own gripe with Duran for several reasons, but if you have the opportunity to trade him, and yes, Rafaela won't be ready next year, but if you, like you said, you get him the reps and you want to commit to him, then commit to him, because Duran's not it.
And then also, like, when you look at how everything stacks up in terms of the rotation for Worcester, the bullpen in Worcester. That's one other thing that, I was really excited about as well, is what players could make the MLB roster out of spring training. You look at what Cutter Crawford was able to do. You saw what John Schreiber was able to do in the middle of the season, cement himself within that bullpen. We saw Zach Kelly at the end of last season really look like he had some potential coming out of the bullpen. How will he be able to up like his value going into spring training, show those, not only front office people, but Alex Cora, that he deserves to be a major league bullpen arm. And also, some of these other guys like Chris Martin, Brandon Walter, they could potentially impress during spring training. So even though, in your mind, you can make all these different predictions of what the depth chart, what the lineup, what the rotation will look like, we truly don't know until, the end of spring training and that week going into opening day.
And, sometimes spring training doesn't tell the whole picture. The
True.
Red Sox could have a terrible spring training and be pretty decent in the season, or they could have a very, very good spring training. And I mean, we saw it last year with Fitzgerald, right? Everyone loved him, became fan favorite. And he's probably going to be some sort of mainstay in Worcester. Maybe he'll get called up just due to injury or something like that. But I don't know if there's an actual spot for him. But, he had a great spring training and he's incredibly versatile. He's played every position except catcher, I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And, you do need someone like that in your organization, but there is a lot. I think this is the thing, is that there's a lot of potential for this Red Sox team in 2023, but they didn't make the moves that maybe they should have made, or they've made moves that have maybe upset fans more than it's excited them. And it's giving them, more pessimism going into the season, which I completely understand 100%. Yeah. And it's validated. Like, I understand when you see the other teams in the AL East and throughout the entire league getting better, making the moves, signing players that will make their team better. And the Red Sox are just like, yeah, we'll grab Chris Martin. Yeah, we'll grab Kenley Jansen. Kenley Jansen is going to be fine. But like we've mentioned, the offense has to do its job. And in order for him to do his job, they've got to be able to give him that opportunity. So there's a lot of exciting potential. I just think that the moves with Xander Bogaerts, and you've had interest in insert name here, and they came close, or they signed with Tampa Bay so they could be closer to home. Nate Eovaldi even, we went home to Texas. So there's a lot of, missing pieces that were important to this team, and they were replaced with pieces that would have been great 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah. And they still have that potential to be good and bring, power to this lineup and depth to the bullpen and give some stability to the bullpen. But I think that there's a lot of less excitement especially when it comes to the pitching, because you have Chris Sale, who's just always been injured, hasn't really pitched since he signed his extension. You don't know what you're going to get from James Paxton, though we know it could be good, but he hasn't pitched in 2 years, 3 years. He threw one inning in a Greenville game and got pulled because of the injury. Chris Martin, you don't really know. And Nick Pivetta, I mean, again, we've talked about him, that he's probably going to be the most reliable guy in that rotation. Whether he's going to give you a quality outing, that's something totally different. But there's just, and Garrett Whitlock, you don't know what you're going to get, but we know it could be good. But there's just so much unknowns, so much what if, so much potential that I don't think that's getting fans excited, because it's just the moves that have been made haven't been what Chaim Bloom has promised Kike Hernandez and promised the fans.
Right. And I think, that is definitely justifiable, as you mentioned. And I think, the approach that they need to take, let's say they make 0 moves from now until opening day, I think, or spring training. I think the approach that they really need to take is use these what ifs, use these unknowns, and sort of the negativity that is going on outside of the Boston Red Sox clubhouse, and use it as fuel, use it as motivation. That's what they did in 2013. That's what they did in 2021. That is what really helped give them that sort of mentality that we're not going to listen to the outside noise, and we're just going to focus on doing our best to fight to get to a World Series. Talent isn't always on the paper. We saw it so perfectly in 2021, which is only 2 years ago. And it's really crazy to, obviously see, all the different people that have moved on from the team, how the chemistry has sort of shifted with a little bit of a dim light with Bogaerts, the captain without the C on his chest, not in the clubhouse. But at the same time, if you're able to get that magic that the Dodgers got when they had Turner, Kike, and Jansen, they're able to bring a little bit of that from their experience a few years ago. You're able to bring a little bit from 2021. You're able to use the older guys, the veterans. How they're really going to be able to help the young guys, we don't know. But that's one thing that you can look at as an exciting factor. Even though there are a lot of there's a lot of negativity about how old this roster really got. And when you look at sort of, what the direction is supposed to be, according to what Chaim Bloom mentioned, having long-term sustainability while having young guys come up through the system, but also something that I think a lot of people forget is, with rebuilding teams, which the Red Sox aren't, but what I'm saying is with younger players, you need to have those veterans in order to be able to show them the right way to play the game, the right way to prepare, the right way to be successful, the right way to overcome adversity. We saw Nathan Eovaldi, we saw Rich Hill be able to do that with Brian Bayo. How will potentially Justin Turner be able to help out Tristan Cassis? Who knows? You know what I mean? Different perspectives, different people with different experiences are really able to help a clubhouse and the team overall flourish to their full potential. So those what ifs, those unknowns, I think are something to be excited about. Obviously a little bit weary, but at the same time, some question marks. You brought up, the lineup, you brought up the rotation. Who could surprisingly be good? How will Kike bounce back? How will the Red Sox really use Paxton? There are those question marks, but you could also look at it as a way to, make the season more interesting. And what also helps as well, no teams know what the Red Sox are doing. They're not going to be able to predict or have a scouting report. This is exactly what's going to happen. How are they going to use these different guys? Maybe even the Red Sox don't know, but
I don't
they'll
think
have
they
it figured
do.
out. They'll have it figured out by opening day, but
Hope so.
that helps out.
You said it. There's a ton of question marks in there that it should give fans kind of excitement, because you did get, you do have still have veteran leadership with Justin Turner. You have him in there, but you do lose, of course, Xander Bogaerts and his leadership, JD Martinez and his leadership, and what both of them brought to the team in terms of leadership and just being a voice in the clubhouse. But I think that, you said it best, be weary of it, because this, I think if you go in with lower expectations, it'll be a lot easier, I guess, to handle. And when you talked about the rotation and the team getting older, I think that's also kind of what's making fans being like, what the heck is going on? Because no one in the front office has said we're rebuilding. No one has said that, but it certainly seems like they're doing a slow, painful rebuild and just not being transparent about it, and just making these moves to kind of bridge the gap until these prospects are ready. But we've talked about how it can be dangerous to put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to your prospects and just hoping they work out. And if they don't, it's like you have to start all over again, and it just can get messy. But for 2023, I understand why fans, I mean, I'm not particularly jumping up and down of excitement just because of the unknowns. But when you do look at someone like Kike Hernandez, who was dealing with a hematoma in his hip for how long, and then we saw him really we understood that that's exactly what was hindering him. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And I have to imagine he's playing with some sort of chip on his shoulder, some sort of anger toward the Red Sox, and maybe many of the players are, because they're feeling like, what is the direction of this team? Where is this team going? We're not exactly better than last year. Like, if I'm looking at the lineup and anyone who was here last year, I'm like, no way, we're not better right now than last year. It certainly doesn't feel like that anyway. But I think someone like Kike Hernandez has a chance, and even Trevor Story has a chance to really have bounce back seasons, because when Story was healthy, he was really good at second base. He was amazing at second base, and I think that's where they should keep him. But I'm not making those decisions. But those two in particular have the chance to provide excitement and to provide pop to this lineup and give fans something to cheer about. Maybe on a whim decide, go on some third-party ticket sales and be like, wow, tickets are like $8. Might as well just go, because Kike and Story are in the lineup. Maybe Justin Turner goes scorched earth for the first half of the season or something. So the Red Sox need to, and quickly at the beginning of the season, need to show fans why they should still go to Fenway, why they should still show up at the park for these players. Players love playing in front of their fans. Like, I don't think anyone has anything against the players. It's, you know, it's the front office, it's Ty and Bloom, it's John Henry, it's the moves that they've made all off season that have made fans be like, no, I don't really want to go see them, even though they're still exciting players to look out for and to watch. I mean, Tristan Casas too. He's someone to really look out for next year. I'm assuming he'll be the full-time first baseman. So there's potential. But when you're the Boston Red Sox, it just feels like there's a better way to go about this to get the fans excited for a new season and new players.
And hopefully, with this optimism that we not only have, but hopefully they continue to build up things going into opening day, and it's able to help the overall odds of if people want to bet online on the Red Sox final record or the amount of wins that they'll get or whatever it is. But betonline.net is your number one source for your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get your latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, which if you're listening to this, you definitely love them, you can also check them out at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And you brought up the youngsters, and that was something that I had on my list as well, is sort of what will guys like Brayan Bello, Tristan Casas, Connor Wong be able to do, and how will they develop throughout the season with regular everyday reps. Now, who knows how much of everyday reps will Connor Wong will see. Who knows really how that catching position will platoon, how many games will Reese McGuire be behind the backstop, how many will Wong. But at the same time, as you mentioned, Tristan Casas in my mind is the everyday first baseman. Brayan Bello probably number 4 or number 5 in this Red Sox rotation. So obviously I think we're going to see some bumps in the road for these guys. That's what happens with any rookies, but that's how they become better. But I think being able to see them mature and get better throughout the season is something that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, 100%, because now it's, we've heard so much about Tristan Casas for what I feel like is years, and he's finally here. He's finally at the Red Sox level. He's in the big league organization now, and now it's his time. We got a small sample size from him last year. He was hurt a lot in Worcester. That high ankle sprain really set his debut back for weeks, maybe even months, but I think he'll be fine, but there, like you said, there will be learning curves. There'll be humps and to get over, and speed bumps and hurdles and whatever you want to call them. They're going to go through growing pains. And we saw some of them with Bello last year. It was, he just could not get through a start without what it seemed like just getting lit up. So they started using him as a longer reliever. Now he's got this full off season, and much like Casas, I think Bello will be fine too. And I think he'll be a solid piece to this rotation. And if he pans out, again, a lot of potential here. If he pans out the way that people think he will, and same with Casas, they're going to be two very dangerous players. Yeah. And I think that in a year when it's not looking the best for the Red Sox and their fans, that much like I said about Kike Hernandez and Trevor Story, that Casas and Bello have the chance to provide some bright spots here for this team and to provide reason for fans to continue to support this team. Go to Fenway, watch the games on TV, listen to the games on the radio, however you want to take in the game. But if Casas and Bello, if they really live up to their potential, and maybe it's not even this year, maybe it is next year, but if we start to see some of that, it'll be like, oh, okay, like these guys, yeah, they are going to be good. They are worth the hype. And I do believe they will be, but it's sometimes we don't see the true prospect for 2-3 years, maybe, until they can get acclimated with the big league level, their routines, the team around them, especially if it's like the Red Sox, who are kind of going through this weird quote unquote rebuilding phase where there's probably going to be new players next year. And this time next year, we're going to be talking about different players on this team and different prospects to look out for, and another year of Tristan Casas. So there's those two in particular, I think do still get fans excited, especially we saw so much electric stuff from Bello last year, and fans are intrigued by Casas because we got a small sample size from him, and we want to see what he can really bring to this table, because, and we saw him in Worcester too. We know the talent's there. We've seen it. We know it's there. And now it's just a matter of getting acclimated to the MLB level, and the full off season will help. And Casas has a lot of good support around him. He's got good trainers, good teammates. and Alex Cora, of course. So you have good people around these guys that will only elevate their success. I just hope
Right.
it translates in order to get fans excited and give fans excited for stuff about the future. And if you want to
Mhm.
say like, oh, hey, they'll be gone in a few years because homegrown talent, okay, fine. Like we can cross that bridge in 4 or 5 years when we get to it. But for now, like let's just enjoy this growth and see them hopefully turn into the superstars that they're pegged out to be.
And I think with that youth and with that like potential, it brings a lot of energy and youthfulness to the team. Even though this team is a little bit older, I feel like if they're able to, as I mentioned, in my last point was channel sort of what made the Mariners successful this last year and so much fun to watch, with where every single pitch, like not only fans but everybody on the bench was like on the edge of their seat, and who knows what they're going to do for the new home run celebration or like dances or any of that sort of stuff. But they got to bring back that energy. I think that's something that, we spoke a lot about last year, is that they just didn't have that energy because they weren't really able to go on a run unless it was in the month of June. That's really it. And so, they're obviously going to have their ups and downs, but I think still being able to have that energy, have that swagger, have that chemistry that not only shows within the clubhouse, but shows outside on the field. And, especially with that youth, I really hope, as most fans do, that the Red Sox have sort of learned their lesson of not being able to lock up homegrown talent. And, one thing that was brought up, at the beginning of this offseason is the Red Sox could have interest in locking up guys like Brian Bayo and Tristan Casas early. And, obviously Devers is the biggest question mark. Who 100% knows about that? But one other guy that I want to mention as well that nobody's really talked about the possibility of them extending him is John Schreiber. He's pre arbitration eligible this season. He begins arbitration in 2024. And even though, he did show you a glimmer of hope last season, struggled a little bit in the later parts due to over workload from being in the bullpen and everything like that. But I think if you're able to sort of buy out, his 3 arbitration years, he's a free agent going into 2027. So who really knows, what you could get for him. Obviously, his value's at an all-time high point right now with how he finished off. But definitely something to think about. I think if the Red Sox are able to, sort of replicate what Alex Antominellis of the Braves have done and be able to lock up guys like Bayo and Casas throughout their arbitration years, maybe their first or second free agent year, sort of like they did with Whitlock, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, you say, hopefully they've learned their lesson, and I just feel like they won't ever. It's not something they'll ever learn, just because of history repeats itself every so often. And when it comes to homegrown talent and someone who legitimately and genuinely helps this team in more ways than just on the field. So, I mean, hopefully, yes, hopefully they do learn their lesson. I want to believe that one day we'll be Red Sox fans and we'll see homegrown talent locked up for multiple years. And before they get to free agency, they won't disrespect the players with these low ball offers. They won't let these players walk. And if they do, they'll end up trading them. Like, if they'll just be smarter. That should be the New Year's resolution for the 2023 Red Sox. Just be smarter with your talent, with your moves, with everything that comes with running and owning and managing a team. But yeah, I mean, you'd hope if they Casas and Bayo, if they end up panning out the way that we expect them to, and that many others expect them to, you would think maybe year 3 they're talking about, let's get you extended, or let's avoid arbitration and we'll get right back to the drawing board, and we'll get back to the negotiating table. But let's do this, the arbitration, we'll avoid that, and we'll talk about a long-term deal. I sit here and say that it's not that hard to do, but I know it's more than just it's more than just, here, this is what we're going to give you, say yes or no. And I know it goes beyond that. I know it goes, there's a lot of negotiating, there's a lot of talking back and forth. Contracts are not easy, and especially when it comes to your money. I get it. But if Costas and Bay are going to give you everything and more, or if they just give you enough, then yeah, you need to lock these guys up. And I don't think people are asking for 11, 12, 13-year deals. They just want commitment, 8 years, 9 years, even like 7 years. We've seen they committed to Yoshida for 5 years.
Yeah.
Why can't you do that with your own players?
Yeah.
So, and you don't even know if Yoshida is going to pan out. So when you see them, giving those kinds of deals to players that are outside the organization, outside Major League Baseball, and not doing it with your homegrown talent, it's like, okay, when is this going to end? Hopefully it has ended. I don't have faith in that, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we'll find out sooner or later what's going to happen with their next superstar of homegrown talent.
And I do have faith that, and you could say it's blind faith, but there's also evidence behind it that the front office has learned their lesson. Chaim Bloom has been very vocal about how he wished that the team had prioritized extending Devers way earlier. But if you really think about it, 2019 he was hired in the later part of the year. 2020 happened where COVID, nobody really knew how much money was going to be able to be allocated towards free agency. 2021, the labor agreements happened. You had no clue what the CBA was going to look like. And now we're here in 2022 where Devers' value is at a high point. So, the one thing that you can say all you want, this is Chaim Bloom's fault, but if he was here back in 2018, 2017, he would have had a much better chance where there wasn't the lockout, where there wasn't COVID, where there wasn't all these question marks on how much money or luxury tax issues with John Henry. And, we've talked about it. It's an ownership thing when you start to talk about those numbers. Obviously, Chaim is the one who negotiates, but, with Boris and other agents, when they're talking about those types of numbers, they like to talk to the ownership. So, I think, you can have the optimism from that evidence that I just mentioned, but unless they show us, we're not going to have any clue. And you fed into the last thing that I'm most excited about with talking about what how Yoshida will really be able to perform. I think that's going to be fun to watch. How will he really be able to adapt to major league pitching? We know that he has great play presence. We know that he has a great eye. Andrew Jones, former major league player who used to play for the Orioles, mentioned that he is the Japan Juan Soto. Him being compared to Ichiro, and you can listen to all that noise when the Red Sox were at their lowest point. That they paid more than half, whatever from 10 different GMs. But if you really think about it, there's 9 other GMs that might have a different opinion. That's just a perspective that you can look at it as. So the Red Sox already signed the contract, so they're already locked in for 5 years. So might as well as root for the guy who, in my opinion, has the best nickname on this entire squad and on the team for a while, Yoshi. So let's all get excited for Yoshi. Who freaking knows, how good this guy will be. And, I think, his energy, we saw it in the press conference, could be infectious for this clubhouse.
I hope so. I mean, I do hope so. He seems very excited to be here, and I do feel bad for him because if he is the big acquisition of the Red Sox this offseason, that's just more pressure on him from fans and probably himself to perform at a high level and at a level that he did in Japan. But he seems, like I said, he seems very, very excited to be here, and he's eager to learn English, and I think that's awesome. I love that he prepared that English opening to his statement. And I believe it was Jason Veritek when Daisuke Matsuzaka was here, learned some Japanese so they could speak to one another when he would go out and go on the mound, and they could communicate effectively. I wonder if Veritek remembers anything from all those years ago, or if he's going to continue to do that, where they can just communicate one-on-one. You don't need your interpreter, and it maybe makes it a bit more personal, and he gets more excited that people want to learn to try to talk to him and try to include him. He's part of this team. He's one of your teammates, and you're going to be with this guy about 9 months out of the year. Yep. So I do hope he looks like he'll bring the energy. I mean, just from highlights and even some pictures that I've seen of him, like he just looks like he genuinely loves baseball. So he's someone, I'm very excited to see. I just really hope it works out because it's just going to be a disaster. Like for Chaim Bloom, for the front office, not that they care, but Red Sox fans will just be shaking their heads because what else can they do at this point? Like, oh, okay, here we go. Like we spent all this money on someone who they weren't sure was going to work out, and there he goes. He didn't work out, but turn it around, play devil's advocate. He could look like the steal of the offseason.
All we can do is just keep the faith. But we're going to look at some of your guys' responses for what you are most excited about going into the 2023 season. But before we do that, Lauren just wants to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar.
I feel like I haven't talked about Built Bar in so long. I'm very excited. You all know how much I absolutely love Built Bar, and I eat one every single day. I ate one before we came on to record the podcast, and if you are looking for a delicious treat, but you necessarily don't want all those calories, you have got to try a Built Bar. The holidays are over. The resolutions, a lot of them, they tend to roll. Damn. They tend to evolve around eating healthy, getting back into the gym. And if you're like me, where you do want to eat healthier, and that's one of your resolutions every year, but you don't want to compromise taste, then Built Bar is right for you, because with Built Bar, healthy is actually pretty tasty. They're delicious. You won't think they're good for you because it feels like you're eating an actual candy bar. So you're probably like, hey, what makes Built Bars so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, real chocolate, every single Built Bar. They are so good. They come in a variety of flavors too. There's churro, there's peanut butter, there's obviously my favorite cookie dough and peanut butter brownie, there's coconut almond. There's a flavor for everyone. If you are very picky with your flavors, Built Bar has one for you. I'm honestly not sure how they do it, but they taste like legitimate candy bars while maintaining amazing macros. And that's even better because they're healthy. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. And if you are close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13 bar box with all of the hit flavors. There's brownie batter, there's churro. Oh, brownie batter. Yes, pick up brownie batter because you will thank me later. Head to your nearest Walmart too. You can walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. That's what I did because I was just too impatient to wait for my latest order. You can pick up a 4-box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puffs, all of these flavors. Like I said, something for everyone. And if you go to built.com right now and use promo code LOCKEDON15, you will get 15% off your order. That's LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at built.com.
Now, let's look into some of your guys' responses into what you are most excited about going into the Red Sox 2023 season. Starting off with Dan NH, Sox lover. He agrees with us. He's excited for Yoshi. He's excited to see what he's able to do on the MLB level. We got KM Gunder. He said, me being wrong about this team because right now I'm expecting about 70 wins. Well, let's try and stay realistically optimistic, but still optimistic. Then we got B-Nags1. He said, this guy leading an underrated and ridiculed team. Let's go with an Alex Cora gift. Couldn't agree more. Alex Cora has done it before. He'll do it again. He knows what success is. He knows what a losing team is. And, you saw it in the press conference. He's fed up. And then we had a lot of different people. We had Compadre and then also Looney Talk. They both said Tristan Cassis and Brian Bayo. Same with Sign, Pasti, and Rafi. Love the name. Can't complain about that. He also said Bayo and Cassis full season. Then also see how Yoshida translates to Major League Baseball. And then we got at near left. He said Bloom might get fired. So we'll see. Very curious to see how everything plays out in terms of the 2023 Red Sox season. But until then, we are going to continue to keep you updated and excited about this Red Sox season. And if you want to stay up to date with everything that is not only going on with the Red Sox, but also this podcast, make sure to follow us over on Twitter. You LO_Red Sox. You can also follow me. It's at Jigigi, and also Lauren. It's 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. And we thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. But that is it for what we're most excited about. And I think that is really going to be my slogan for the 2023 season. Just keep the faith. Just stay positive, be patient, not only with life, but also with the Boston Red Sox. And all we can do is continue to try and, keep positivity and good vibes. I wore my lucky jersey and my World Series hat, if you're watching the video version, trying to bring good juju to this team. But all we can really do in the bottom of our hearts is just say, let's go Sox. Peace.